Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tools and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively. Welcome back, everyone. Today I have guest Bijou Finney, also known as the Mushroom Mamasita. Bijou is a brand stylist, psychedelic facilitator, and holistic guide, specializing in visionary life design for conscious entrepreneurs. Her therapeutic process teaches business owners how to use psychedelics and healing practices to retrain their central nervous systems. Bijou offers transformational retreats and one-on-one virtual coaching to help entrepreneurs remove mental blocks so they can show up in the world in a more soul-aligned and enjoyable way. Bijou, it is a pleasure to have you on my show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So I've got to say, you and I, we booked this show about a little over a month ago, I believe, and I've been really looking forward to talking about this particular topic. So today you and I are going to dive into the magic of microdosing, utilizing plant medicine to heal. And so I have actually been very recently introduced to plant medicines. When I say recent, I mean in my 40s. I'm in my mid 40s, and this is very new to me. You know, a lot of my friends back in in school were doing all this stuff, and I was involved in sports, and I was always involved in something where I couldn't dabble in this area. So, you know, when I talk about utilizing mushrooms to heal, oftentimes people immediately lean towards magic mushrooms, but I want to talk about both in this show. I'd like to talk about the difference between medicinal and magic mushrooms. So can you share with us what the difference is between the two?
I would call them all medicinal. But yeah, the magic mushrooms, the psilocybin, isn't exactly legal everywhere, but it is, its magic lies in the somatic release of tension or stress or trauma from the past, whereas medicinal mushrooms like reishi, chaga, turkey tail, lion's mane, all of those have a specific part of the body or skeletal muscular or organ system that they really support. And so, yeah, I mean, I myself utilize mushrooms across the board to really support myself with my stress and with my sleep and with my brain and everything, really.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so, you know, psilocybin helps to repair the brain function. It can reduce depression and resulting in us making us feel happier. And so the one time that I actually have done magic mushrooms, I did it during a shamanic ceremony. And, you know, before I did this, I had a lot of people telling me, you're going to have a bad trip, or you're going to be scared, or you're this. And I didn't feed into any of that. I actually had a very beautiful, loving, healing experience. And I think it was the intention that I set moving forward into that particular journey for me. And, you know, I sat there and I spoke to a rose for about 3 hours. I mean, I learned a lot about that rose, you know, and it was a really magical experience for me. And so I want to talk just briefly about some of the mushrooms that are not, you know, the psilocybin based mushrooms, like you had mentioned. Okay, so we have the lion's mane mushroom, which supports our healthy brain function, mental focus. So for those of you suffering maybe with brain fog, lion's mane is a good one to look into. Reishi, it's known as the mushroom of immortality. It's for immunity, anti-aging. It is a good sleep aid. And I know psilocybin is as well. So, you know, a lot of these, like you said, we kind of cross over in those areas. And so cordyceps improves lung function and lung capacity. It also increases energy. Chaga is excellent. I've been using chaga to decalcify my pineal gland, and I make that in a tea, and it boosts digestion and helps clear skin. Turkey tail is known, it has been known to help heal cancer, specifically breast cancer, from what I've done some research on. And that is also, it boosts the T cells in the body. Shiitake is great for the cardiovascular health. And then maitake helps to maintain a healthy blood pressure. and that also supports the immune function. But let's talk about psilocybin, because this is your area of expertise, Bijou. So, and you're using this with entrepreneurs, and you're helping people heal the central nervous system. So tell us a little bit more about psilocybin and how it helps heal people.
Yeah, so I specifically love working with entrepreneurs, even though I work with a variety of different people, even if they're not entrepreneurs. But I would say entrepreneurs in general really benefit from working with this specific medicine, just because a lot of our risk aversion, a lot of our fear of showing up publicly for our brands, a lot of the stress that we deal with as entrepreneurs, a lot of the ways that we need to see our problems in a new and innovative way. All of that can be addressed with the use of psilocybin. And I know too, someone hearing this, they might say, how can it help across the board like that? And I would say that in two very specific ways, in the sense that it really does a number on your brain, and it really helps with word recall and how you resource your stress and how you see your life and your perception of everything. But then on another note, it really gets to the root, or can help you get to the root of maybe some of your past traumas or wounds or experiences, maybe program that you have running that is no longer serving you. And once you work to replace that with someone, it really affects a vast majority of potentially your problems in your business or in your life. And so it's just so fascinating to me to really dive a little bit deeper with someone and understand what is the unconscious programming, or what are the blocks that they have in their psyche that they're not totally aware of, and how can we kind of work to remove those or to replace them.
Absolutely. So you talk about microdosing. Can you explain what microdosing is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to your point about people are afraid of a bad trip, I believe there's only like challenging trips, in the sense that if something is coming back up from your past and it's traumatic, if you are comfortable with the medicine and your facilitator, then you will not have a bad trip. You will actually just kind of get through that a lot easier. And so microdosing allows you to get really comfortable with the medicine, and allows in a small, slower way for you to really work with it over a longer period of time, to where you might have a pretty legitimate wound or past block come up and become rather aware of it, to where then maybe it's appropriate for you to do a bigger experience around that specific thing. So it allows you to really work with intention to understand you, yourself, and your past, your current environment, and your future goals. And so, yeah, it really helps people with focus. It helps people with stress resourcing. It helps them with mood. It helps them with connection with their partners. It can help in just a lot of ways to just put you in a parasympathetic state and allow you to calm down a little bit.
Absolutely. And so when we talk about microdosing, what size dose are we talking about? Is it different for the individual? Or because I know with me, when I did that ceremony, I started off with, was it 3 milligrams? Does that sound right? Or 3 grams? I'm not sure, but
3 grams.
Okay, grams. Okay. So and then I upped it a little bit, and then I was okay, because at first I wasn't feeling it, and then it had kicked in. But when we're talking about microdosing, what amounts are we talking about?
Yeah, so everyone is very different, and the dial-in process is really important. I would say that's the reason why most people quit, because they either can't feel it, or they feel it too much, or they're not picking the right strain. And so I would say some of the factors that will affect what will make you feel it and not someone else is body weight, height, if you're on SSRIs, what does your past trauma look like? Can you devote some time to really feeling into it, or is your schedule very busy? All of those things need to be taken into account to understand what the right dose is for you. Some people don't want to feel it at all, and they are okay with taking a little longer to see results without feeling anything, and it just working in the background, whereas other people want the placebo effect, and they want to feel a little bit of something so they know something's working, and they can kind of just go about their day.
So how are they taking these mushrooms? Are they just eating it, or are they kind of like I take my medicinal mushrooms, I put them in my morning cacao. So I kind of do a ceremony in the morning with mine. I've got I love the 4-sigmatic mushroom blend because it's fruit bodying versus just the mycelium. And so how do you microdose with the psilocybin?
So it varies per person, but I would say the majority of people will make their own capsules. And so it's like grinding up everything and putting it into capsule form and weighing it. Whereas some people maybe have sensitive stomachs and they might want to make a tea or a tincture form. But I don't suggest microdosing with chocolate. It's just very hard to tell how much you're eating in that way. And if you're trying to drive or be around your kids, then it's important that you know how much you're taking.
Absolutely. And so, when you're working with entrepreneurs, are they microdosing daily? Are they just doing it through ceremony? Or how are you teaching people how to utilize this healing technique?
Yeah, so in ritualistic form, maybe you would take it and then you would have a meditation and you would actually understand what it feels like to be in your body and support yourself with a walk or a stretch or a meditation. I don't suggest doing it every day. I know there's a lot of protocols out there that are like 5 days on, 2 days off, especially for women. I feel like it's too much. You need that breathing room in between. And I don't want people developing tolerances because then they just like have to spend more on the product. And so I would say that I typically consult people on a 3 or 4 day a week type protocol and about 3 weeks on and 1 week off a month. And so it depends. If someone's trying to deal with like a very heavy addiction or migraines or something like that, then they would have a different protocol. It depends per person.
Okay, so let's talk about legality. I know I live in Idaho. It's not legal here, but I know Oregon has passed some laws about that. So where can people actually do this? I mean, and there'll be a day when we all can, right? We all can across the world. But let's just talk about legality very briefly when it comes specifically to psilocybin.
Yeah, so thank goodness for organizations like Decriminalize Nature and MAPS. Like it is moving up in legislation pretty quickly in some states. It is not federally across the board, which I'm hoping for that one day. So that does mean even if it is legal in a state federally, it's still illegal. Much like cannabis was when it first came out in certain areas. So it really depends on where you are because there are even cities that are legalizing it and not the whole state. And so definitely it's almost changing by the month or year, it seems. And so checking into where it's legal, and if you're interested in it, you can go and do a ceremony there. And then, yeah, it's really all about education and consultation at this point. And then once it is legal, it'll probably be as simple as like your medicinal mushrooms that you're put in your cacao in the morning. I truly believe it's going to be as easy as that for someone to utilize this medicine on a daily basis.
That'd be fantastic. And I'm really looking forward to that day, where we can have access to this. And I know in those states you can grow, your own, and similar to states that are now legal with cannabis, you can have a certain amount of plants that you can grow. And so when you're microdosing, say you're an entrepreneur and you're microdosing for those 3 weeks, how functional are you? Is it like, are you kind of really relaxed, or are you on alert, or is everybody different? What does that look like in those beginning stages when you first start microdosing and then you still have to go about your daily activities?
Yeah, so I actually suggest when someone's first starting that they do at least 3 months because it's like the first month you're dialing in the right amount and dose and you're understanding how to fold it into your lifestyle. By the second month, that's when stuff starts coming up and you can support yourself in like working through it. And by the third month, you're really in a nice flow. Sometimes people will turn it into a 4 to 5 month, or sometimes 3 is just enough and they intuitively do it afterwards. But I would say that, yeah, if you dial in the right amount, it feels like a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, and it only feels like that for a short period of time. And then you just go about your day, and it's really just in the background the rest of the day. So you might feel a little bit more relaxed or in a better mood, or maybe you might even get a little sleepy. Some people will have that experience, in which case they should switch to a nightcap protocol. But yeah, it really just depends per person, and you really have to do your due diligence to figure out who you are and what protocol and strain and dose is right for you and your lifestyle.
Wow. So that's really interesting. So what are some, you know, I don't know if symptoms is the word to even explain it, but what are some things that people can expect that could happen physically, emotionally, spiritually, or even mentally when they start microdosing?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. I very rarely get asked that, and I wish I would be asked that more, just for expectations' sake. I will say that it does show you where you're not holding boundaries in your life at times. So I know a lot of moms that I consult will message me and say, I randomly got really frustrated with my family. And it's always whenever we dig a little bit deeper that they're not really holding a boundary on where they need time and space. Or people will get like the feeling like, I don't really like that person. They really bring me down. I don't want to be around them. And so it makes you sensitive and hyper aware of like the people around you and the things that you're doing, so that you can kind of steer clear from some of those things that really bring you down. Sometimes it can give you an extreme amount of energy, in which case you would want to take it early in the day. Some people actually go into parasympathetic state for the first time in their lives, and they say, I feel kind of sleepy, which in all actuality, they're just really calm. And so then taking it later in the day when all of their things are done is typically best. So at first, when people very, very, very first start, sometimes it can hurt people's stomachs just a little bit, just like taking a new supplement might make you feel a little bit queasy. But there are a lot of tools and tactics to support you with getting over that rather quickly. And I would say those are like the main ones that I can report from people's experiences.
Yeah, and those are very common. You know, I think with any type of healing, you know, you should always be open to expect something, you know,
Mhm.
whether it be physical or emotional. I know when I did that ceremony, I felt fantastic through the entire time, but then the next morning I woke up and I felt like I had a bruise on the back of my head. It was like something had maybe moved, you know, moved out for healing or whatnot. But that was the only kind of symptom or side effect, if you want to use those words, that I had experienced. So how do microdosing mushrooms actually retrain or reprogram the brain? I work a lot with the subconscious mind. I do EFT tapping, I do quantum healing, hypnosis. And so this is a totally different modality that can also help retrain the brain. So can you explain that, Bijou, and how you work with people to help retrain those subconscious programs that may be holding them back?
Yeah, so actually using some of those techniques and also somatic release, and it honestly just allows someone to open a little bit more or to soften a little bit more and to let the subconscious speak up a little bit more, so that those other healing modalities really work. So for instance, when we do a microdose assisted session, they would take their microdose and we would get on a Zoom call, and I would take them through a visualization or ask them a bunch of questions, and we would understand their mental blocks, and we would understand certain wounds that they might have, or programming that's not theirs that they might have picked up from someone else. In which case, then during their microdosing protocol, they will actually focus on those things, and it's small changes over time, small habits that help them support this changing in their life, or just sometimes the mere awareness of it is all it takes for them to kind of understand that they're doing that. And so I would say it's just like a knowingness and understanding of themselves a bit more that really supports them in maybe taking a step back and understanding what they're typically doing in certain situations.
That's neat. So if people want to start this protocol and they want to work with you, do they have to come to you because it depends on where they live and the legality of it? How does this process work? Because I'm sure people are probably asking that.
Yeah, so I work on education and consulting. So I am a therapeutic coach in the sense that I take them through a container, and by the time they're done working with me, they should understand how to utilize this medicine into their lives. And so you can utilize it in recreational senses to maybe better connect with your partner, or really nice big experiences once a year to wipe the slate clean, or microdosing. And so understanding what's right for you and what you have going on is one of my main goals, but then also just immense self-discovery that allows them to understand the changes that need to be made over time. And so I really help them understand, like, what questions should you be asking to be able to source your medicine, and how should you process it yourself, and whatnot. So I can't go into all of the things that I would talk to a client about, but if they have questions, they could obviously reach out to me, and I can support them in understanding a little bit more about how they can utilize this work.
Absolutely. And, I guess maybe that would be my one question, if you can answer it, is, what do people need to know to get a good source of it? Because, not getting something with pesticides, not, making sure you know where it comes from. I know when I did my ceremony, the person who grew them put a lot of love and intention and care into them. So if you can answer that question, for those out there, what should they look for when they are looking for psilocybin?
Mm-hmm. Good thing is that pesticides are not normally a thing utilized in the growing of mushrooms. It has to be a very clean and sterile environment that is very controlled in order for them to grow. And so you shouldn't be having to worry about that. The thing is that what I find is that people are unaware of the strain and how vastly different they can be. So for instance, they'll come to me and they'll say, I took 3 grams out with my friends one night and I had the best time ever. And then another time I did 3 grams and I was under the table rocking and crying, and it was like the worst experience of my life. And they need to understand that if some mushrooms are sitting on your friend's shelf for 2 years and you take them, that is not a good indication of what 3 grams is to you versus 3 grams of fresh mushrooms. And so asking your grower, like, what is the strain and how old is it? Like, when was it harvested and how has it been stored? And so I would say those are the big things that people might try to take some of the very strong strains for a microdose. And I don't suggest that, because even in a very small amount, your eyesight will still be affected and it feels like a very dense experience rather than a light one. And so, yeah, the next thing would be, like, how are you taking care of your mushrooms? Are you playing like rage, like rock, death metal around them when they're growing, or like, are you showing them love and putting intention into them when you grow them? And I think that does make a big difference.
With psilocybin, does it matter if it's fruit bodying versus mycelium, similar to, say, lion's mane or reishi? Does that make a difference?
Oh yeah, it has to be the fruiting body. And I would say that a lot of times there'll be stuff out there, and beware of scammers, because there's like a ton of people that have reached out to me saying that someone reached out to them on Instagram and then they paid them and they never got their stuff. So definitely, like, do your due diligence to try to find a good source. But the combination is the thing that I'm not sold on. So a lot of tinctures and capsules will say that they have lion's mane and all of these other things in it. And my personal opinion is you're not going to be able to get the amount that you need of all of those things in one capsule or one dropper. And so I like knowing that, like, my microdose is 100% psilocybin. And if I want to add lion's mane or niacin or any other things, then I do that separately. So I know that I'm controlling the dose of each to where it is bioavailable for what I'm taking, and I'm taking enough of a dose to actually see results. And so I would say that's a big thing, is don't get pulled into the hype of, like, this one pill has everything in it, because that's typically not
How
the
they
case.
sell it and market it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've done my research too on that, because I had to go through several different ways, to get mine. And so, yeah, that's a great point. And definitely be alert to those, especially on Instagram. I know I've had a few reach out to me. I didn't make any purchases, but it was they were kind of hawky, it's
Yeah.
like something, and then they're immediately in your
Yeah.
messages. So I'm glad you brought that up, because it's really important, especially if you're like me. I'm new to psilocybin. This is the first show I've done on this, and I'm learning a lot from you, and about this process. And these are it's like they're ancient ways of healing, but they're being reintroduced to us, right? So it seems new, but it's really old. It's really ancient
Mhm.
ways of healing. And so, Bijou, if people want to learn more about microdosing, they want to learn more about psilocybin, how can they contact you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm really active on Instagram. I also have a website. I have a variety of different ways that people can kind of get comfortable with this medicine, from group containers if they are kind of not into one-on-one work, or one-on-one work that is very light on the support, all the way to very intense on the support. And so a lot of times people start by asking me questions on Instagram, or booking a consultation to find out what's right for them, to understand if they're a good candidate, to understand what their lifestyle looks like and what they're trying to get with this healing modality. And so, yeah, it kind of just takes the time to find out what's right for you, and how to integrate it into your life.
And so on Instagram, your handle is at Mushroom Mamasita. Is that
Hmm.
how people can find you? I love that. I
Yeah,
love the name. And so,
thanks.
is there anything that we haven't covered that you feel would be beneficial for the listeners or the viewers today?
I would say one of the biggest things that people reach out to me about is this: they have the same mentality as maybe a pharmaceutical, where they have taken a Prozac and they've instantly seen a change in themselves. And I would say that this is not like that. So Prozac is definitely going to cover or numb some of your issues, and so that you instantly don't feel them. Whereas mushrooms bring it up and allow you to process it, and you have to do your work to really support your body in moving that energy out of your system, and really understanding yourself, and literally releasing those emotions and those narratives. And so it takes work. It takes working with someone that you trust. It takes really devotion for a bit to yourself to understand what's coming up, rather than I'm just going to take this capsule and I'm going to be in a better mood. It's not the experience that everybody has.
Yeah. And is it important to share with your loved ones that you're doing this, maybe your friends, so that they're aware of some of, maybe you're having some emotional releases or physical changes? Is it beneficial or not to share that with others?
Well, that's one of the biggest reasons why I'm passionate about working with people, is that I help them understand when to create these sacred spaces to be able to move emotion, rather than it kind of popping out when it's not an appropriate time. It is nice when couples do it together, or at least your partner knows that you are, to help you integrate so you can talk about it. But it's really nice to have someone that has experience with psychedelics to be able to talk about things that are so hard to put words to, as I'm sure you realized when you were trying to integrate your big experience, is that someone can help you put words to your experience or to what you have going on. And so, yes, you can definitely talk to the people in your life and help them understand that you might be going through something, but it's not going to be very obvious to everyone, other than maybe you're in a better mood.
Yeah. And that was my question, I guess, because it's like, if you're really microdosing and then boom, you have a little lash out because you've got some energy coming up. Is it important to share that? But I think just with any healing, it's really up to the individual to make that decision. So, one last question, Bijou, is there anything that you have to share with people who may be fearful of trying this for the first time?
Yes, I work with people who have really bought into a lot of the old stories about this stuff, or maybe they had a past experience where they were in a public setting and maybe drinking alcohol and taking way too much and overstimulated and freaked out. And I have to work through that with a lot of people. They'll have some form of PTSD about it. And I will say that getting over the fear is really one of the biggest things that you'll work through when you start microdosing. And that's why I love microdosing, is because it's such a small amount that you really gain trust and you really understand that it's such sub-perceptive feeling and it really does wonders for you. And so I would say if you're really fearful, then work with someone who knows what they're doing, just so that you don't make any mistakes or have any bad experiences while you start working with this.
Okay. And so, is it beneficial or not to microdose with, say, caffeine, coffee, or alcohol? Does that make a difference?
So when people are dialing in their right dose, I like them to not have anything in their system, because I want them to know what it's like by itself. So for instance, if the mushrooms give you an extreme amount of energy and you just happen to also chug 3 cups of coffee, I want you to know that it's like, which one is it? And you not get like extra jitters. And so, but once you're past the dial-in process, you can go about your normal life and you can utilize cannabis if you're using it, or alcohol or coffee. I will say that most people report back to me that their levels of interest in caffeine and alcohol and cannabis drop substantially, just because they don't need that support as much anymore, or they just like kind of lose that bit of addiction that they might have to it. But yes, it is safe to literally go about your normal life and your normal habits while you're microdosing.
Great. Well, Bijou, this was very informative, and I know this was very informative to me, and I know it will be for my listeners. So I really appreciate the work that you've put into this. I appreciate what you're doing with not only entrepreneurs, but everyone out there. And for those of you listening, please, if you're interested in this, reach out to Bijou, get more information, because, we are on the precipice of learning new ways of how to heal our body. And it's a much more multidimensional way of healing. We are healing our physical, but we're also diving into those emotional, energetic, and spiritual realms as well. And this is where psilocybin really comes into play. And so, Bijou, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you for your calming energy. I really, really enjoyed this. I can feel your energy through this program. So thanks again for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
You deserve to navigate your life as an empath in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.thesoulcafe.org.